So today I am joined by nearly everyone in the Sound Advice reviewer team. We have got Andrew Everard, Simon Lucas, Ed Selly, Steve Withers and Bruce Black. So thank you for joining me, everybody. It's been a busy old year, hasn't it? How many bits of kit do you think you've reviewed, or is it just too many to count?
Well, I can tell you how many the bits I've reviewed, Angela. We started in the end of July, and during that time, these guys have reviewed over 120 pieces of kit between them. So it's an incredible achievement. We've done much, much more than any other publication in the UK. So well done, chaps. It's much appreciated.
And that's in less than 6 months, and it's not like that Sound Advice is you guys' full-time job. So you had other stuff going on as well. That's pretty impressive. I mean, was it generally a really good year for being delighted by kit, or did you have to really wait for something special to come along? How was it?
It was my year was quite repetitious in the kind of products that I had through here. I had a lot of headphones, had a lot of sound bars, and they are very variable in my experience. The last 12 months has really shown up that that it's possible to create a pair of headphones that start at absolutely god awful and then reach a level of really exquisite, all within the same price bracket quite often as well.
And it just shows you, doesn't it, that if you only reviewed absolutely awesome pieces of kit, maybe you wouldn't realise the awesomeness of them until you review a bad piece of kit. Incidentally, I just have to say at this point, at Sound Advice, not everything that gets reviewed makes it as far as the website. So sometimes there are bits of kit that get reviewed that we just decide to not put on there because who wants to read about bad bits of kit? And that way you can also always know when you come to Sound Advice that you're only looking at the best stuff. So that's worth saying as well. Any surprises out there for 2022 for any of you guys?
I have found my experience is a little bit different to Simon insofar as there are certain categories that he is very proficient in that I don't spend anything like as much time or have anything like as much understanding of. Across the things that I've been looking at, both for Sound Advice and in a wider context, I have found proficiency is a relatively easy thing to encounter in 2022. Most things I have looked at are proficient and leaning towards being actively good. Greatness remains a rare quality. It's not something that crops up on everything that you see, far from it. And that's still the elusive quality that it's always a genuine delight to find that. There are items for Sound Advice that I've covered that I feel meet that criteria, but it's still, you can have a product here, it will meet all of it will do all the things it's supposed to do, it will be breathtakingly competent, but it won't be great. I mean, it's hard. I would argue it's harder to buy something which is truly bad in the present. It's not impossible, but it's harder than it perhaps once was. But finding great things is still something that takes a little bit of work.
It's a question we're always asked about. Why does everything get good reviews? Well, the answer basically is that everything's really quite good. The really duff stuff just has gone now. There are some really great products, but in general, everything's very good and will serve people very well.
But I haven't reviewed nearly as much as these other boys, but what I've been looking at, some of the stuff out, I would agree with Ed, but some of it has been absolutely stunning. And yes, it's a lot of money, but it's also still really, really good value because it's going to last you for years and you're going to get enjoyment out of it for years. That's what I think is a nice thing I've found.
How do you go about reviewing things?
I'm sure everyone here has their own different process, but in my case, slightly different because a lot of what I'm looking at are video products, TVs, projectors. And given that there are industry standards that you can measure them against, it means that my reviews can be a lot more objective than some of the audio reviews where you tend to be a bit more subjective in terms of your analysis of the product. So it makes it easier because if you've got a benchmark and a standard to measure it against, then you can immediately see if something is good or bad. obviously you can turn something on and see if it's good or bad usually, but particularly if you're experienced and you've got a trained eye. But it does make it more scientific, I suppose, than some of the other review processes. But when you're dealing with, I'm not going to name any names. I mean, I'm lucky because I've been swimming in the more expensive end of the home cinema pool of late. So I've seen some really cracking, really, really good products. Things like, you know, really high end stuff. That is fantastic. And I've got to say, overall, I think it's been a really good. I mean, home cinema is a segment of the market that's shrinking. You know, it's not as big as it was in the past. It's become a lot more. Well, it has become a lot more expensive, to be honest, because things like soundbars have basically taken over in terms of, you know, most people's living rooms. So if you're looking at actual genuine multi-channel systems with AV receivers and projectors and that kind of thing, it's become much more of using a dedicated space for that. So it's become a bit more niche, but it's a niche I'm very happy to be in. And while I have seen some expensive products, clearly nothing remotely as expensive as the kind of stuff that Ed sees. It is at the high end of the hi-fi market, where it's just completely bonkers.
I have to give ground to Mr. Everard on that one. He plays with he plays with things that are a 4-man lift.
Now, we're going to be taking a look at some of the best bits of kit from 2022, your personal recommendations in a moment. But just before that, I mean, how can manufacturers get a good review from you? Are you influenced by the adverts, by the blurb, by how the kit looks? Ed, tell me how a piece of kit can get a good review with you.
There's nothing in the lead out that you can supply me in terms of press releases, photos, bump. You can take me anywhere you like, and I'm perfectly happy to be taken anywhere I like, but it has no bearing on it. Greatness is just something that happens. I mean, I will say there are some objective start points. I mean, Steve has touched on objectivity. If you can supply me a set of quoted measurements for a product which are clearly based in reality, and, you know, they meet, if you like, objectively demanding criteria, we're off to a good start. But you can't tell me that something is great. I just have to sit down and work out if it possesses it. The product I'm going to wax lyrical about as my product of the year possesses it in spades, despite the fact that fundamentally on a design and build level, it's relatively old technology. So no, there's no route in other than to just, you know, do a lovely balance of heart, soul, and engineering nous. And even then, sometimes you'll be breathtakingly competent, but just argue subjectively it's not great.
And that's true of all the reviews at Sound Advice. No one can pay for a good review. They can't pay to accelerate things up the line to be reviewed. The team get their hands on the bits of kit, and then that bit of kit has to perform and has to delight our independent reviewers to get a good review. And so that's how, you know, you're always reading good, reliable stuff.